Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Chris Columbus's Home Alone from 1990. So yes, here we are, this time to review a Christmas film, and very excited in that sense. You know, here we are reviewing a Christmas film, this time Home Alone. Rewatched this, you know, I can't say how many times I've watched this film, but I rewatched it tonight, of course. Here it is on Blu-ray, and yes, just opened today actually. And of course, spoilers warning. You know, this is obviously going to be getting into some spoilers, but I assume most people have seen this. Despite that, saying that now, and again, you know, in the description, just to let you guys know. And yes, here we are. You know, just opened tonight, purely because last year, and I kind of, if you remember, maybe not. I guess not. You know, last year I kind of, I showed this in one of my update videos, and basically saying that I got this on Sky, and they do that kind of buy and keep thing. So yes, they sent me the Blu-ray. It arrived quite late, so I ended up just watching it on the actual you know, Sky and stuff. And this time around, I planned to actually watch it on the Blu-ray for this Christmas. You know, it's of course a Christmas film. You know, I have seen this outside of the Christmas time period, but yes, mostly I have watched this around the kind of season for obvious reasons. It's been a kind of a Christmas film, but yes, of course, Chris Columbus directs, John Hughes, yes indeed, writes, and also involved, you know, producing this film, and you know, that kind of combination there. You know, I think a lot of people kind of get excited for that, especially John Hughes. But I think Chris Columbus is actually a very, very underrated individual. You know, working on you know, things like Gremlins as well, and you know, certain films that he's directed, but I don't think he gets enough credit for. Really, it seems to be. Yeah, you know, it seems to be, you know, kind of a lot of people do not take to Chris Columbus films and stuff, and yeah, basically he's not as popular as I would have thought many years ago. You know, just not knowing the kind of maybe yeah, just some people not liking him too much, and for example with Harry Potter and stuff. And I just think he's a great director. Actually, I think he really adds. You know, whenever I see his name, you know, he just added, you know, kind of this excitement actually, and you know, just looking at the films that he has directed, been involved in, I think actually, you know, he really is a great talent in my opinion, and someone who brings this warmth. You know, he brought so much warmth to these particular films. Mrs. Doubtfire as well. I just think this is a great film actually. You know, just something that I can really say that I think this is a brilliant piece of cinema, and you know, I think certainly the warmth, this magic feeling comes from Chris Columbus, the way he directs the film. Of course, John Hughes as well. What an amazing, amazing director he was, writer he was. You know, and someone that just, you know, he really, I guess, somewhere on my list of favourite, you know, kind of individuals in the film industry. I think just in general, he really was an exceptional and wonderful individual, you know, of cinema. And I think just the script to this, of course, you know, is just amazing. It really, really is. And of course, just this combination of all these talents, of course, and Joe Pesci in the film, you know, very, very different for him, of course. You know, him being in, you know, Goodfellas and stuff, and Casino, of course, Raging Bull, and of course, The Irishman recently, which I can't wait to review. And yes, but here we are with all this talent here. Joe Pesci, of course, plays Harry, and you've got Marv, played by Daniel Stern, and they are these, as we know, these burglars known as the Wet Bandits, famously, of course, and leaving the taps running. And yes, basically this, it's about this family, and more specifically about this individual. You know, this 8-year-old child, Kevin, played by Macaulay Culkin, and you know, it's just, what a great performance. Really, really is, and just of course being left behind, as we know, as the family go on holiday to France, of course it is. And yes, quite soon after that, you know, when they're on the plane, you know, Catherine O'Hara playing the mother here, basically realising that Kevin has been left behind, and of course the rest of the film is her trying to get back to him, you know, because he's alone, of course, and you know, she tries to get the police to investigate and see, you know, check up on him and stuff. But yes, she basically travels, you know, eventually coming into contact with John Candy, who's in the film, playing this kind of musician, and they basically, of course, as we know, give her a lift, and at the same time, you've got this this character of Kevin and him basically staying alone, trying to survive, and of course, as we know, these burglars targeting this house, eventually finding out, Harry and Marv finding out that he is alone here, and basically saying, we can take this house, and yes, there's something that, it's got this setup, of course, that is just so good, so charming, this classic kind of, warm, just humorous kind of interactions with the family, kind of energetic, I think just so enjoyable here, and you've got this setup, of course, and Kevin not really, being too popular, of course, in the family and stuff, everyone arguing with him, and then, of course, he wishes that his family, he never saw them again, and here it is, this is him experiencing this, and basically, yes, it's a lot of many different things in this film, of course, the big thing being the importance of family, and just a classic kind of Christmas film in this sense. Kind of just showing the importance of family, the warmth of this, and the meaning of it. And yes, what better time to kind of celebrate than for Christmas? That's what it's kind of all about, really. And yes, I think this is a wonderful film. Very little in the way of flaws. I think this is. It's not quite a masterpiece, I wouldn't quite call it that, but not far off actually, and that's just my opinion. I do think this is actually a great film. I think it's one of my favourite films really, among them, not kind of, top 200 maybe, but it's not, kind of far off of that bracket really, at this stage, and I think it's just it's so enjoyable from start to finish really, and as I say, very little flaws here. And it's just so enjoyable, in the sense of the slapstick, of course later on, especially in the film, and the actual script of this, is just so kinetic, so witty, and of course the performances, Macaulay Culkin, it's just such a kind of charming, just brilliant performance. I think it's just such a, a relatable character. Imagine yourself when you were a kid, and it's kind of very, what you would imagine you acted like, or you would act, to kind of this situation. It's very tense, of course, kind of very much, rooting for this character, but of course it is hilarious as well, and I think it's just a perfect kind of tone here, with the kind of, these characters, of course, the crime involved in that, the burglaring, the houses, and also just these individuals, these two characters, Harry and Marv, to combine this though with the kind of the comedy, and it's kind of this perfect combination here, and of course you've also got, this whole thing driving the film, with these the mother, of course, reuniting with Kevin, and just him growing. You see him growing as a person, as an individual, the independence, of course, but also at the same time the kind of the value of family, and how much he actually he does miss them, and that ending comes together wonderfully, of course, and just makes for such a wonderful Christmas film, and just a wonderful film in general. A comedy, of course, but here's something. This character of Marley, of course, and basically he is this elderly man who lives, is a neighbour, of course, and famously, Buzz and Kevin, etc. At the beginning of the film, he's kind of introduced this man Marley, as someone who they tell stories about, of course, as we know, and he's kind of, they fear him, and it's clearly very made up. They're kind of making up these stories, and later on in the film, there's kind of this moment where in the church, of course, with Kevin meets him once again, and then you learn that this character, about this character, and basically them forming a wonderful friendship there, and of course, I think the thing that adds the most emotion to this film is actually that whole kind of thread, and I think I heard something like originally that wasn't going to be in the film, or it was going to be cut out or something like this, and certainly I'm glad that never happened, because that's actually one of the genius things about the film, and the most wonderful thing actually is that whole way that arc links into this, and that whole kind of the way it culminates at the same time as Kevin's arc culminating at the end, to actually just mirror this, the sense of the actual value and meaning of family, and the importance of this. And I think when he sees his son and stuff and the family there, you know, it just is one of the most wonderful moments I've really seen in a Christmas film. And I think just when that comes together at the same time as Kevin, you know, reuniting, I think it makes for such a, well, actually, I think a perfect ending. I think it's one of my favourite endings, actually, you know, in a film. As I say, it's not in my top 200, this film, or top 150, but I think the endings probably is. You know, I think actually, you know, this whole storyline is treated. I think, looking at it, kind of like a, you know, one of these classic pure, you know, films, silent films in many regards. There's a lot of traits here. You know, just very very sympathetic, pure, emotional, just wonderful, purely, you know, wonderful cinema here. What's going on with this storyline, and yeah, it's basically just this whole kind of relationship is just so warm, it's so moving, and in the end, you know, it really brings me to tears how beautiful this, you know, the final scenes are when you see him, and he kind of just gives that wave, of course, to Kevin. Wow, you know, that is just really, really wonderful, and yeah, it's just the way it comes together in the end is stunning. I think the second half of this is definitely really, I think masterful. The first half, not quite, and that's why I don't think overall it is quite a masterpiece. But you know, I think that doesn't matter at all. I think it's very, very close, which we'll get to. But yes, you know, I think this film, you know, the first half, of course, is more of the setup. It's more of the kind of, it's more of a kind of a pure comedy, you could say. But then, of course, it does become more, you know, character driven and emotional. And I think just the importance of family and the actual the real, yeah, just the real emotion, the real feeling of this comes through in the second half, and of course, you've just got the wonderful way, as I say, that it comes together. But you know, this character of Kevin is just so likable, as I've said, charming, and just the kind of the way that you relate to him and kind of see yourself in him. You know, what you would do as a kid, and just also. Yes, just the way that he kind of sets all these traps, you know, it really is amazing. You know, of course, getting his own back on these burglars. It's very, very satisfying, of course. One of the most satisfying kind of family films in that sense. And just, I think Joe Pesci is really just so good in this film, as is Daniel Stern. I think together they're kind of the perfect kind of you know, team up here for these roles, and of course just the classic kind of appearance of these the obvious kind of appearances here, you know, the differences and stuff, and just the kind of way that it works in harmony, and appearances, you know, I say appearances, that kind of sparks one of the themes of this film, tying in, of course, to you know, this character of Marley, and of course the way that they do have, you know, assumptions on this character and stuff, and he maybe to Kevin anyway, you know, through his eyes early on, and because of the rumours and stuff that are spread by his family and stuff, that, you know, that this Kevin is maybe kind of scared by this elderly man, Marley, but of course not judging by the appearance and the kind of first impressions here, and you know, actually when getting to know this character is purely gentle and innocent, you know, in his nature, and you know, of course, then forming that friendship is a really wonderful way in which is kind of the message here, I think, and just the way, you know, the first, of course, Kevin very scared, of course, of this character, but then, you know, actually growing warming to him and actually realising and stuff, and I think that's a really, really wonderful theme of the film. You know, I think it's just this whole kind of family theme in the film, you know, you could say it's maybe, yes, very basic, some would say, but I don't think so. I think it's, you know, it's got a simplicity to it, which I actually love about the film, but it is truly emotional, especially in the end of the film, and you know, it's just felt across the film, you know, the way it's edited, I feel, is great, you know, just the way it kind of balances out the kind of the different viewpoints, and of course what's going on with the rest of the family, and the kind of mission to get back to Kevin, while also, of course, staying with Kevin, and you know what he gets up to, of course, and it's just it's so funny, this film, you know, so enjoyable, entertaining for the family, you know, just to kind of see what happens and what he gets up to, of course, and you know, it's so you know, entertaining, so kind of the action scenes perhaps just so funny, you know, the script, you know, so I think John Hughes was just such you know, one of the best screenwriters of all time, really, for me. I think, you know, he really is someone to behold what he worked on and kind of what he brought. You know, in this kind of, there's always a unique feel to his scripts. I feel, and just something that's, you know, maybe wacky at times, but it's also a kind of particular level of naturalism and just groundedness, I feel, and of course just yes, something that always flows. It seems to flow so wonderfully. You know, his scripts and just, you know, so enjoyable. You know, also very layered characters. I feel, and this is no exception. The script is brilliant in this film. I think it's great, and of course, the performances, as I've said, you know, just so good. John Candy as well. You know, his little kind of appearance in the film is just so enjoyable. Great performance here, and of course, Joe Pesci. You know, Daniel Stern here as well. You know, also good here, and of course, yes, just great characters, entertaining characters. You know, I think just the mix of comedy, you know, action, you could say, drama, and you know, all these things. The location, I love. You know, I love this location, the actual house, as well as the neighborhood. You know, kind of idyllic neighborhood. You know, what a lovely little kind of location there. But of course, these burglars coming in here, and I think it's hilarious how kind of insane they're kind of treated at the beginning. You know, the way they kind of course, Joe Pesci, you know, kind of disguising as a policeman to kind of, you know, investigate different houses. You know, it's kind of really shocking, but it's very, you know, kind of treated in such a way, actually, you know, that's kind of, you know, it really works, I feel, and I think just the way he does this, and then of course we're pointing back to Marvin, you see him kind of, you know, planning out, of course, different things here and trying to break in, thinking, of course, it's going to be easy, and then of course the 8-year-old in the film manages to beat them, as we know, which is just brilliant, very, very satisfying, and of course the whole way, I think, actually, that you see the plans from, you know, Kevin's viewpoint, and how he kind of, I think, the ingenious ways in which he kind of you know, traps these criminals is just so brilliant. You know, it really is quite genius. I think it's just so good, so investing. You know, I'm always invested in this film. I think just this whole kind of way, the charming way, and just very, very meaningful way in which Kevin is, you know, on his own and kind of trying to survive, you know, and stuff. Going shopping, for example, you know, just going to the church, of course, that scene there, and just, yes, just around the house, and how he's kind of left. At first, of course, as a kid would, you know, kind of enjoying this and kind of enjoying the freedom perhaps and stuff, but then eventually kind of realising that he does miss his family. It's just a perfect kind of narrative in that sense. You know, I think it just comes together so wonderfully in the end. That this is a truly great film for me. You know, not much more to say, or maybe it's best to just kind of leave this, you know, for people to watch, and an analysis would be, you know, a longer review perhaps, a longer video, and yes, I think just one of my favourite kind of Christmas films, definitely in my top 10, you know, kind of pure Christmas films, and I think it'd be great to talk about more Christmas films this month. I cannot wait. Of course, I've seen a couple already. I plan on watching The Polar Express, but I did review that, and I also plan on watching a few other Christmas films for sure, quite a few. Who knows? Well, actually, no, of course, I am planning on watching Die Hard, so I cannot wait for that. You know, actually watching it at Christmas as well. I haven't done that for a number of years, actually, but yes, you know, just to celebrate this kind of time of the year, it's going to be great to discuss with you viewers, of course, what is your favourite Christmas film? And this is one of my favourites. It's certainly right up there in my top 10 favourite Christmas films. I think it's just such a charming film. I love the characters, the narrative, the location, all this kind of stuff. I think, you know, it's just wonderfully edited. You know, I think there's just a couple of moments in the first half that don't quite reach the potential, I feel. Just especially, you know, seeing what the film does in the second half, amping everything up. I think it's not quite a masterpiece. Some of the first half just isn't that level, you know, that actual masterpiece level, personally for me, but I feel the second half and the final act especially absolutely is. The last 30 minutes or so is masterful, and I think, you know, the character of Marley, this relationship is like something out of a wonderful silent film in its purity and actually in its emotion, and just, Human Understanding. I think this is absolutely stunning. This is, it's just absolutely stunning. I can't quite believe this actually. And yes, I think I have to give this film a 98%. I absolutely love this film. Not quite the masterpiece level, but as you know, there are many films that I give even a 92, 93, or a little bit less that I do absolutely adore and are on my favourite films list. This one is very, very close to being a masterpiece, and I think it really is just a great, great film. Borderline masterpiece really for me. I think just a couple of moments, as I say, that don't quite reach the potential in the first half, and maybe one moment of comedy that doesn't quite land as well as I think it could have done. But really, it's just a great first act. So enjoyable to see the family. Buzz, for example, and all the characterization is so wonderfully set up. And then of course they're reunited at the end of the film as well. Just so good, and just to see how things have changed, the transformation, of course, of Kevin, and also just the way in which Kevin kind of gets his revenge on these burglars. Of course, it's just, as we know, very, very satisfying, and it's just a wonderful film. John Williams providing an absolutely stunning score. No doubt, once again, John Williams, for me, the best composer of all time, and this is just another one of them scores. That is absolutely marvelous. Absolutely stunning. A heavenly composer, of course. My favourite, personally. Really is the best for me of all time, and I think this is just a stunning, stunning score. Also the different, "Oh Holy Night," all these songs used in the film. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. That church scene is just an absolute masterpiece of just of cinema. It really, really is. I think it's actually a beautiful film, and just also a very, very just a highly entertaining film. The action, of course, the slapstick is so well timed. Not quite to the point where it's overboard at all. And it's a real control to this film. And I think, as I've been saying, Chris Columbus. A lot of people would say otherwise. Lack of control, but I do think he knows. In a number of his films, when to kind of do this, do that, and just kind of bring this together and keep control, particularly on the comedy actually, and the level of just kind of upbeat feeling. And this one is just a wonderful film. Is it his best film? There's only one film that I think could, I'm not going to say can be better than this, that he directed. He's directed before, and I think this is just a great film. And John Hughes, there's screenwriting here, just really great, great stuff. This is a wonderful film that I absolutely adore. Have done all my life. Do I remember when I'd never seen Home Alone? Of course not. I've always kind of watched this film in that sense. And yes, I guess a lot of people as well. Kind of growing up watching this film. And of course, I've seen this many, many times, and I can safely say it is among my favourite films. Top 300 or whatever kind of thing. But it is on there on my favourite films list. So that's something else. It gets that accolade. Gets that kind of honour, if you will. And yes, just a stunning film. Of course, wonderful on Blu-ray. And yes, this score as well, as I've said, is just so good. Somewhere in my memory, this kind of title theme, really, really wonderful stuff. And this is just a wonderful piece of cinema, and just a great, great piece of family entertainment. As just a comedy and a drama and a family film. One that really shows the value and the importance and the meaning behind family. Of course, just wonderful, and of course, other different themes in the film, as I mentioned, and the emotion, especially by the end of the film. And as I say, that ending, just one of my favourite endings, really, in a film. That moment, of course, as I've said, where the exchange of looks out there and that kind of whole ending scene, it's just one of my favourite. It really, really is an absolutely wonderful scene, an absolutely stunning piece of work in this film, and of course, yeah, it's just one of my favourite Christmas films, definitely my top 10. So yes, what do you think of the film? Tell me your thoughts in the comments, of course, as always, and of course, yeah, it'd be great to talk about your favourite Christmas films, perhaps, and if you want to, maybe leave a list. You know, just thoughts on this film, Chris Columbus, of course, and just yeah, I have seen actually as well, of course, the sequels to this film, but I don't think, for the record, they're anywhere close. I really couldn't stand Home Alone 4. Oof, wow, that was a really grueling experience. I hated that film, but I do like the second one. You know, Home Alone 2, of course, Chris Columbus directing that as well. I don't think I'll review that. I'll maybe watch. I think I'll maybe watch that next year, perhaps. But yes, I do think this is the best Home Alone film by far. And yes, just Chris Columbus on form here. John Hughes, what a legend he was, and left behind so many wonderful films that he wrote, that he's produced, and directed, of course. You know, just brilliant. You know, this is a brilliant film, in my opinion. Close to being a masterpiece, not quite, but one of my favourite films. So yes, as always, tell me your thoughts in the comments, and yes, thanks for watching my review.